I'm going to call you Bessie because you're 6 years old, and I'm going to come right beside you at that seat that you're sitting in the first grade, and I'm going to say to you, Bessie, do you know what a headache is? You're 6 years old. Do you know what a headache is?
No.
Don't know what a headache is. All right. Now we're going to promote you to the 4th grade. When I lift your hand and drop it, you'll be in the 4th grade. Now stay relaxed. You'll be there. That's it. Now you got it. Now tell me, Bessie. You're about 9 or 10 years old now. You're in the 4th grade. Do you know what a headache is?
No.
Never had a headache up to this time. All right. Let's take you now to the 8th grade. Now lift your hand and drop it. You'll be in the 8th grade. There you are. Now, you're in the 8th grade, Bessie, and I'm going to come up to your chair, and I'm going to say to you, up to your desk, and I'm going to say to you, Bessie, you're about, how old are you now? About 13, I imagine. Tell me, Bessie, have you ever had a headache? Do you know what a headache is?
No.
You don't? So now, when I lift your hand and drop it, it'll be the day that you first had a headache, the first time you ever had a headache in your life. Because by now your awareness is so increased that if you stay relaxed, we'll be able to locate the very first headache and what caused the first headache. There you are. In the dining room. What's happening in the dining room?
We're fixing lunch.
You're fixing lunch? Who's fixing lunch when you say we? Mother and you?
Grandmother.
Grandmother and you. Where's Mother?
She's in the hospital.
She's in the hospital. I see. She was in the hospital. Has she been gone for a long time? Has Mother been gone for a long time?
Yes.
How long a time?
7 years.
About 7 years. So you've been raised by Grandma, is that it? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're fixing lunch. I want you to hear what Grandma is saying and what's happening that would make a little girl have a headache in another 5 minutes. Watch. Stay completely relaxed now. There you got it. What's Grandma saying?
I want to go horseback riding.
You what?
I want to go horseback riding.
You want to go horseback riding?
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't Grandma want you to?
No.
Why?
I got to stay and wash dishes and iron.
You got to stay in and wash dishes and iron. And you don't want to stay in and wash dishes and iron.
No.
So what happens because you don't want to stay in and wash dishes and iron?
Trick my sister into doing it for me.
Trick your sister into doing it for you. How would you trick your sister into doing it for you?
I used to have to run to the bathroom and she'd wash them while I was gone.
I see.
She'd be at the dairy.
Uh-huh. Okay. Now, this was really a way of saying that you were out of order. Wasn't that right?
That's right.
Now, let's see if this was the reason why you also had a stronger excuse this time if you had something else. What was that something else that's due in about 2 or 3 minutes now as you're thinking about it? I want you to tell me, I don't want to tell you.
I didn't quite understand your question.
Well, in about 2 or 3 minutes, a little girl who wants to get out of ironing and washing the dishes is going to have a headache. Why is she going to have a headache? What's bringing it on? She wants to get out of washing the dishes and ironing, but what does that headache represent?
Mad, I guess.
Mad and
I was unhappy.
Mad because you were unhappy because you had to wash the dishes
You couldn't go horseback riding.
and couldn't go horseback riding. Now, let's go a little bit further. Might it also have been, and you tell me really, might it also have been the case of if I was sick, I wouldn't have to do the dishes, and if I was sick, I wouldn't have to do the ironing?
Yes.
Yes.
You always do that.
You always do that.
Find excuses.
Find excuses. Now remember, you are saying that, Bessie, not I. But this is the history of tens of thousands of migraine cases. It starts out by a game of pretense. If I was sick, I wouldn't have to work. If I was sick, I wouldn't have to wash the dishes. If I was sick, I wouldn't have to iron. They pretend so hard, and they try so hard to be sick, that finally, they really develop a headache. Now, the first headaches aren't migraines. The first headaches are merely excuses. In other words, it works fine the first time. She pretends she's got a headache, and she tries awfully hard to have one. And pretty soon she really thinks she's got one. Isn't that so? She pretends so hard and tries so hard to have one that eventually she can really sell herself a bill of goods that she's got a headache. Now, when she finds out that the excuse works the first time, a habit pattern becomes born. Now she is seeking to make the same trick work again. Do you notice that she made the statement, if I could trick my sister into doing it, she wouldn't have to do the dishes or the ironing?
Well, I ended up getting spanking.
With that first headache?
Yeah, well, that first one I did.
Well, who did
But not right at that time.
Who gave you the spanking?
My granddad.
Your granddad gave you the spanking on account of that. Because you pretended so hard that finally he gave you the spanking and said everything has to be perfect. Is that right? This may have also been the start of the perfectionism, too. I notice, however, that you were married at a very, very early age. How early were you married? 15. Now, let's see if the second headache that she had has many of the same contents. So when I lift your hand and drop it, it'll be the day of the second headache. What's happening to bring on that headache?
Fixing lunch.
Fixing lunch again? All right, so we have part of the same contents. What's happening?
Trying to fix lunch and take care of the baby.
Trying to fix lunch and take care of the baby. Whose baby? Your sister or something?
Mine.
What?
Mine.
Your baby.
My baby.
Wasn't quite 17. All right, she's got her first baby. You're trying to take care of the baby and fix lunch for the baby or for you?
Family.
For the family. And what's been happening?
No, my brothers.
With your brothers. What's the arguments about?
My lunch.
About lunch. They want lunch already and it isn't ready. Is that it?
One didn't like what I fixed again, and they got into an argument over it.
They got into an argument about lunch.
Mm-hmm.
This is about 3 minutes before the headache began. How does that affect the little girl?
I know.
You got upset over it. Now, you tell me why. I know why. But you tell me why, because I want you to know why you got upset.
Because they were fussing over me.
Yes, but there's more.
My lunch.
Yes, there's more than that. Remember what you told me about the first headache. Now put it together with what you telling me about the second headache. You'll have the whole answer.
Well, I just want them to eat it and get it over with and let me go ahead. That's what I had to do.
Yeah, but
they got into a fight over it.
Yeah, but there's something else.
It wasn't that the lunch wasn't good. It's just the fact he didn't like what I was having for lunch.
All right, that's okay. But now, there's more to it than that.
At this point, I'm sorry to say, a loud noise began in the building which interfered with our recording. It was during this time that the hypnoanalysis revealed a profound perfectionism complex in the patient. This girl was a perfectionist to the extreme. After the noise, I began explaining to the doctors the meaning of a perfectionism complex.
The headaches began with her pretending. She wasn't a happy little girl. She was a very unhappy little girl living with her grandma and grandpa, and they were very strict. She pretended so hard to be sick that she became sick. And for that she received a spanking, which apparently made quite an impression on her. Everything has to be perfect, which seems to be the old man's thinking. And it seems that at that point, I'm not sure of it, but it seems that at that point the perfectionism was born. Now she doesn't want a spanking. It's hard enough living with grandpa and grandma as it is. Now if everything was absolutely right, she wouldn't have to get any spanking, she wouldn't have to get any punishment, she wouldn't have to get any headaches, she wouldn't have to get anything. But the habit pattern had already been born of the pretense. Now when a few years later, I don't believe that we've gotten to the second headache. This is probably about the 10th or the 15th headache that we've gotten to that she's talking about now, instead of the second headache. Because usually, that game of pretense that they play, I can tell you this from having done thousands of these things, usually about a month later, 2 weeks later, or something like that, she would have pretended again, and again, and again, until finally she wouldn't have to pretend anymore. Any little emotional upset would cause the headache. Then when she got to be 16 and had her baby, and the two brothers were living with her, now came the big headache. That is, any little emotional thing, like the two brothers fighting at lunch, would upset her. Because she'd want the lunch to be perfect this time, because if everything was right, she didn't have to be sick, there didn't have to be anything at all happen. But with the upset caused by the two brothers fighting, this thing developed. It isn't a clear-cut pattern, and I think that what you'd have to do at this point is to do this in the privacy of your office and carry her through on this. There's a sex element here, a very strong sex element. There is the childish resentment to the uncles. There is the childish resentment to the brothers. But nevertheless, she has already been married and had a baby, so that there are hidden things in there that aren't coming to the surface and wouldn't come to the surface before a group like this. Also, that would explain the perfectionism. That takes in already more than I can go into in a class. But I can tell you that this desire to keep everything very, very clean and everything very, very perfect is, without question, a guilt complex in there. But she wants to stay clean. She doesn't want to hurt anything. She wants everything to be perfect. What does it really represent? It really represents a washing of the hands, a cleansing of the mind in the perfectionism. It indicates the need for further psychotherapy, more than hypnoanalysis can do. Can you, all of you, follow what I'm saying by what has happened? Can you see the connection between all these things? Because you should be able to see all these things just as I see them. And just as she would undoubtedly agree that this is 100% right. Is that correct, Bessie? Yes. So I would say that the sexual angle has to be gone into thoroughly.
Here is a different type of headache case. The patient is one who wakes in the morning with a headache and doesn't know why. The doctor can find no organic condition. He knows it's on a psychosomatic basis. Could her dreams at night cause her to be ill in the morning? This is how dream material is extracted in hypnoanalysis.
What happened this morning, Vivian, in addition to what you told me? Get along with the kids all right when you were bicycle riding with them? Did you see anything that you didn't want to see? Did you do anything that you didn't want to do?
No, but it was the first time that Mother had been starting going to work.
Oh, if this is the first time Mother is away and school is out, and this is the first time she ever had to cope with the situation of making her own lunch and being home by herself all day, this could distress the child very, very much, because apparently the need for mother love was great at this time. Is that right, Vivian? All right, Vivian. Now let's go to the second headache you ever had, and let's see whether the second headache had elements of it that the first had. So, when I snap my fingers, it'll be the day of the second headache. How soon is this after the first headache?
The next day.
The next day. In other words, the same situation recurred and you reacted by another headache. Did you tell Mother about the headache yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
What did she say?
She thought it was just being hot and plain hard.
Mm-hmm. And now today's headache you know is caused by Mother not being there too, is that it?
Maybe so.
Well, maybe so or really so, which?
Probably so.
Probably so. Is there any other cause that you could have for a headache, for a normal little child having a headache? Nothing else. All right. Now, it's the second time, and here is the habit pattern. This is the beginning of the habit pattern. And now you see two headaches having in it the need for security, because that is what it represents if you analyze it. Here's the child who needs that feeling of security. Twice she has been deprived of it. Twice she reacts by a headache. Now let's go to the third time she ever had a headache, and we'll see whether the habit pattern was created. When I snap my fingers the third time, it'll be the third time you ever had a headache, and you'll know just exactly what caused it. There it is. When is this?
Probably the next day.
The next day. 3 in succession.
Every day for several weeks.
Every day for several weeks. And what happened then? Did Mother stop working and come home?
No, she took me to the doctor.
She took you to the doctor. What did the doctor say?
Made me wear glasses to read.
Now, Vivian, if we were right in our analyzation, the habit pattern would be created with 3 headaches. And now if we go to the most recent headache you ever had in your life, the one that you just had today or yesterday or a week ago or whenever you had it, we will find the same elements in this headache that we found in the original ones. That is basically the need for security. I'll snap my fingers and you'll tell me about this last headache you ever had. Watch. When was it?
Day before yesterday.
Day before yesterday. What happened?
I woke up with it.
What?
I woke up with it.
You woke up with it. Now, I'm going to show you how we get at that material, which is arrived at in sleep. In a couple of seconds, I'm going to count to 3 and snap my fingers, Vivian, at which point you will see a television screen. And you will see a woman lying on stage in bed. She will be having a dream. That dream will take place right above her bed. You'll see her lying there. You'll see the dream. That woman lying there is you. You'll see again the dream which you had a day before yesterday that caused you to wake up with a headache. And then we'll translate the dream for you. Now watch. 1, 2, 3. There's the television screen. Now watch it. You see the woman, don't you? Watch the dream that she has.
Baby.
A baby. Do you have a baby, do you? Uh-huh. What's she dreaming about the baby?
Sick.
The baby is sick. Uh-huh. That's the dream that caused the headache, isn't it? Were you worried about your own? She was scared. Worried about your own baby, were you? Do you have a baby? Were you worried about your baby?